So I'm a lawyer. I'm in private practice in Calgary with Bennett Jones. I'm a member of the private equity groups and the capital markets group. And my practice is really divided into three areas, I would say. One is investment funds, working with venture capital funds and private equity funds and hedge funds. Another component of my practice is more traditional, what I would call more traditional securities and capital markets work. And the third is mergers and acquisitions work, M&A work. I like to think of myself as being fairly pragmatic and practical in the practice of law. A lot of what I do is transaction-based, and so our job, amongst others, is to facilitate deals. And there are always problems when you're doing deals, so you have to be somewhat practical. I tend to try to focus on the bigger issues and not get too bogged down in the weeds on things that would be nice to have but aren't critical to get the deal completed. And as well, I consider myself as being fairly creative. When problems come up, I think it's important to be able to come up with creative solutions. Sometimes you need to go off the beaten path in coming up with solutions to the problems that arise. As external counsel, we're really professional problem solvers, and so being able to come up with multiple ways to do things is part of our job. And lastly, I would say I consider myself, just generally as part of my nature, I like to be helpful. And in doing so, clients are coming to us first and foremost for high-end legal services. But above and beyond that, we can provide a lot more help than that, whether that's making introductions to somebody that would be helpful to them in their business, or just generally passing on news or information or other things that they can use. I think it's incumbent on all of us to do that, to be good external counsel. There's a lot of change going on in the legal profession right now. The law profession has a bit of a reputation for being, an old, staid, cobweb-strewn business, but we're not immune to all of the current changes that are happening. There is constant pressure to do things more quickly, more efficiently, at a lower cost, both externally from clients and internally. And technology is a big part of that as well. One of the challenges that I always find in my own practice is I have a component in my practice that deals with venture capital, whether that's acting for venture capital firms or on the other side helping startups. And startups, of course, cash is precious, and high-priced outside legal services, they just don't have the bank account to service that. And so some of the things we've done in the past are unique billing arrangements with some of them. We've donated a fair amount of time to those that we see as being prospective and that we want to help out. And as well, I think there are technology solutions to some of these things, which will come whether we like them or not, over the short and the long term, that all of us need to be on the lookout for and embrace when it's available to make our practice more efficient. As I said, a lot of what I do is merger and acquisition and transaction-based work. And on any material M&A transaction, there is always a big team involved, both internally and externally. Within your own firm, there's always specialty expertise that you need to bring in from people who are Competition Act experts or Investment Canada experts, employment or labor experts, intellectual property experts. And so there's that internal dynamic that you're always trying to coordinate on any deal. As well, there's a fair amount of differences in seniority of the people working on files. And if you are the lead on the file, trying to make sure that the right people are doing the right job so it's being done in an effective and an efficient way is really important. From an external standpoint, again, the bigger the transaction is, the more complicated and more jurisdictions it tends to involve. On most significant M&A deals, you'll be involved with service providers, law firms, accountants, and others in multiple different jurisdictions, different countries with different laws that all need to come together and provide the right advice all at the same time. And so to some extent, you're a professional project manager trying to make sure everything comes together at the right time for a closing to happen. I really like the practice of law. It is very challenging and very demanding. And so I think if you are in external private practice in law and you've done it for any period of time, you really have to enjoy it. It has to be rewarding because it's just too hard otherwise. If you don't enjoy it, it's too difficult. And so for me, you kind of have to know how you're wired, I think, and personality-wise, I don't do boredom well. I like new things all the time. I really like learning new things, and I enjoy people, dealing with different people. So the way my practice runs, it's different every day from one day to the next, and the people you're dealing with and the problems that you're addressing tend to be very different from time to time, and I really enjoy that. It is meaningful for me to be able to help people and learn new things all the time. It's ever-changing. There are a number of examples of pro bono work. I think I've got a bit of an overdeveloped sense of responsibility, and I like helping people out. So as a result, I get involved in quite a bit of nonprofit or community involvement work. Some of that is related to my own personal life. I've been on the board of my kids' charter school for a number of years, still helping them on their audit committee, coached both of their athletic teams in the past, still involved with their organizations there, trying to develop some new athletic facilities. I teach an M&A class at the U of C Law School, which I quite enjoy. That one's quite personally rewarding just because I enjoy mentoring and teaching, as well as a number of other things in the business community, working with some entrepreneurs, helping them with their startup, a fair amount of time in that.